Sophie had always dreamed of her wedding day. Not just the man, not the venue, not even the flowers. It was the dress. Ever since she was a little girl, she'd collect bridal magazine cutouts, glue them into a scrapbook, and imagine herself walking down the aisle. The satin, the lace, the train, everything had to be perfect. But perfection was something Sophie's mom, Margaret, believed only she could define. Margaret wasn't your typical mother. She was the kind of woman who believed control was love, and meddling was her divine right. To outsiders, she looked like a classy, caring mom, but Sophie knew better. Behind that polished smile was a woman who needed to be in charge of everything. When Sophie got engaged to her college sweetheart, Ethan, everyone was overjoyed, except Margaret. She congratulated them, of course, but beneath her words, Sophie could sense disapproval. Margaret had never liked Ethan. He's too soft, she'd say. You need someone with a backbone. Someone like your father. Sophie would roll her eyes. Her father had been absent most of her life emotionally, if not physically. So someone like him wasn't exactly a compliment. Despite the tension, Sophie moved forward with her wedding plans. She picked the venue, the cake, and finally the dress. A custom piece from a small designer in Chicago. It was everything she'd ever wanted. Ivory silk, hand-bedded bodice, cathedral-length veil. It cost a small fortune, but Ethan had insisted she get it. It's your dream, he said. Let's make it real. For the first time, Sophie felt like everything was falling into place, but Margaret saw it differently. You're spending too much, she complained. You don't need an expensive dress for one day? That's ridiculous. Sophie ignored her. She'd spent years trying to please her mother, and this time she was determined to live for herself. Then one morning, 3 weeks before the wedding, Sophie came home to find her dress missing. At first, she thought maybe the dry cleaners had called. But no, it wasn't there. The garment bag that once hung proudly in her closet was gone. Panic hit her like a punch to the chest. She called her mom immediately. Hey, Mom, did you stop by the house today? Yes, I did, Margaret said casually. Should really lock your doors better. Where's my dress? Sophie demanded. There was a pause. Then Margaret's voice came, calm and sharp. Oh, that old thing. I sold it. Sophie's heart dropped. You what? It was wasting space. And honestly, it looked too... flashy. I found a lovely lady online who needed a dress. You'll thank me later. Sophie couldn't breathe. That dress was mine, Mom. You had no right. Oh, don't be dramatic, Margaret sighed. You're lucky to have a mother who knows better. Wait. That designer was overcharging you anyway. For a full minute, Sophie was silent, her hands trembling. You sold my wedding dress, she whispered. Yes, Margaret repeated. And I used the money to pay off your credit card. You're welcome. That was the moment something inside Sophie broke. Not just anger, but a lifetime of swallowed resentment.
The years of being talked over, of decisions made for her own good, of being treated like a child long after she'd become an adult. This was the final straw, and Sophie decided if her mother wanted control, she'd show her what real control looked like. Sophie spent the night crying. Not just over the dress, but over everything that dress represented. Independence, joy, a life free from her mother's interference. But the next morning, she woke up different, numb but sharp, cold but clear-headed. She wasn't going to scream or beg for an apology. She was going to teach her mother a lesson in boundaries, one Margaret would never forget. She started by checking her financial records. Sure enough, the deposit from the dress sale had gone straight into her mum's account. Then, something odd caught her attention, a bank notification linked to a joint account she opened years ago, when Margaret was recovering from surgery. Back then, the hospital had required a secondary signatory, Sophie had signed up to help manage bills while her mum was bedridden. That's when she remembered it, the power of attorney document. Margaret had given Sophie legal authority to act on her behalf, just in case something happened, and she'd never revoked it. Sophie sat there for a long time, staring at the document. She could almost hear her mum's voice in her head. "You read too emotional to make big decisions." A bitter smile spread across her face. "We'll see about that." Over the next few days, she played the long game. She acted normal, smiled through the pain, even invited her mum over to taste wedding cake samples. Margaret showed up as if nothing had happened. "You look tired, sweetheart. Still upset about that silly dress?" Sophie bit her tongue. "I'll manage," she said. "Oh, good," Margaret replied. "By the way, I listed my house last week, just to see how much it's worth. The market's crazy right now," and that's when Sophie's mind lit up like wildfire. Her mother's house wasn't just a property, it was Margaret's kingdom, the place she'd ruled over for decades, micromanaging everyone who entered. Sophie didn't want the house, she wanted her mother to feel powerless, so she made a plan. She met quietly with a real estate attorney, the same one who had notarized the power of attorney years earlier. She showed the paperwork, explained her position, and asked the golden question: "Can I legally sell her house?" The lawyer reviewed everything carefully. "Technically, yes," he said. "As her power of attorney, you have full legal authority. But I'd strongly advise against it unless it's for her benefit." Sophie smiled. "It will be, in a way." She listed the property under Margaret's name, using a private buyer who offered a fair cash deal. Within 2 weeks, the sale was complete. Margaret had no idea. Then, one morning, she received a call from the buyer's agent asking about the move-out date. "Excuse me," she said, confused. "Move out of what?" "Your house, Mrs. Collins," the agent said. "The closing went through yesterday." Margaret froze. What went through? By the time she reached Sophie's apartment, she was in a full panic. "You sold my house," she screamed. Sophie calmly handed her a check. "It's your money, Mum. You can buy yourself a nice little condo, something ... modest."
Margaret's face turned red. "You can't do this to me." Sophie tilted her head. "You gave me power of attorney. Remember? The silence that followed was deafening." "You sold my house," Margaret whispered again, this time weaker. "And you sold my wedding dress," Sophie replied. "Now we're even." Word spread fast through the family. Aunts called. Cousins texted. Everyone wanted to know if the rumors were true. Sophie's uncle even drove over to mediate. "Sophie, she's your mother," he said. "You can't just sell her home." "I didn't just sell it," Sophie replied. "I sold it legally." Margaret, meanwhile, had gone full victim mode, crying to anyone who'd listen. "My daughter betrayed me. She stole my home." But people who knew her well weren't entirely sympathetic. Margaret had a reputation for controlling behavior. This wasn't the first time she'd gone too far. Still, Sophie couldn't escape the guilt. She hadn't expected how heavy it would feel. Watching her mom's car pull out of the driveway for the last time, that broke something inside her too. For weeks, she wrestled with it. Part of her was proud. Another part was crushed. Ethan tried to comfort her. "You did what you had to do," he said. She needed to see consequences, but Sophie wasn't sure. Then one night, Margaret called. Her voice was softer this time. "You've made your point," she said. "I didn't realize how much that dress meant to you." Sophie closed her eyes. "It wasn't just about the dress, Mom." "I know," Margaret said quietly. "It was about control." There was a long pause. "I'm sorry," she finally whispered. "I went too far." It wasn't much, but for Margaret, it was monumental. Months later, Sophie stood in a different dress. Not as extravagant as the first one, but somehow more beautiful, because it symbolized freedom. Her mother was there, sitting quietly in the second row, no controlling comments, no backhanded compliments, just watching. When Sophie said "I do," she felt lighter than she ever had. After the ceremony, Margaret approached her. "You look beautiful," she said. "Thank you," Sophie replied. They stood in silence for a moment. "I bought a small apartment," Margaret said. "It's quiet. Maybe that's what I needed." Sophie smiled softly. "Maybe we both did." There was no magical reunion, no perfect forgiveness. Just two women learning to live with the past and move beyond it. Sophie later donated part of the money from the house sale to a charity that provided free wedding attire for low-income brides. "Something good should come out of all that chaos," she said. When she looked back, she realized the real revenge wasn't selling the house. It was reclaiming her peace. Because sometimes, the only way to win against a toxic parent is to stop playing their game.